And now we come to the hardest question of all. I often dread this question when my owners ask me, "Doc, how do I know when it's time?" Or "Is it time?" And I say that because there are so many factors to consider. There is the medical side of what's going on with your pet. I can look at blood work from a pet, and the blood work looks like the pet is just severely ill and probably not even able to function. And then I walk into the exam room and the dog is wagging its tail and looking at me like, what's going on? Certainly the opposite is true. I can have a pet that comes in and looks just very close to death, and I maybe can't find a reason for why they're so sick, or it doesn't match up with what is happening with the pet. So all that to say is that my assessment of your pet, based on the vitals, the blood work, all the things that I see and can tell you about, versus what you're seeing at home and what your pet is doing and how they are functioning in the day-to-day, those might not all be in a line, and we need to consider all of these things as we discuss when is the best time. And as advocates for your pet and their well-being, we all need to weigh in together, and then ultimately I can give you my advice, my recommendation. Sometimes people will say, what would you do if it was your pet? And I usually am okay to answer that question, but ultimately the decision is yours as the owner of the pet. It is up to you, and I'm here to guide you. My advice, here's some tips over the years that I have given people, or just different pearls of wisdom that I think is helpful in making this decision. And again, there's no one size fits all. It's a very gray area. Some people are very comfortable with staying at home with their pet and maybe administering some daily pain injections and things to get them through so that they have a little bit more time. Other people don't want to see anything like that, don't want to deal with any type of hospice care in their home, and all of these are valid choices. I tell owners, in general, when you can say the number of bad days that my pet is currently having outnumbers the good days. And all that to say is that it's not a linear situation. It's not like your pet is going to become sick and then every single day they are just laying around. They won't eat, they won't get up to the door, they won't wag their tail, they won't go on a walk, the cat won't chase the ball. It might be that your sick pet has 3 very bad days where you think we're at the end, and then they may have a good day and you're like, oh, maybe we're getting better, maybe we're rallying, maybe things are turning around. It can be very confusing, and that is common. It's also a trend that we see with humans at the end of life as well. There is something called a rally or a surge that we see at the end of life, where right before death, sometimes people and animals will experience a boost of energy. Maybe they feel really good, there's some endorphin release, or they have a lot of humans, they have clarity of mind, which we may not be able to tell that in our pets, but suddenly the cat who wasn't eating might eat, and the dog who wasn't going to the door and wagging his tail might suddenly run outside and chase something for 10 minutes. And I think this becomes very unclear to the owners and maybe muddies the waters about what we're experiencing. So I tell them, let's look for the trend. If your pet who has arthritis has struggled to get up and had no interest in walking for 5 of the last 7 days, but 2 good days, to me, that is indicative that we are in the situation to determine that, it seems like we are nearing the end of time, if not the time to euthanize, because 5 days of not wanting to get up and walk is, not ideal. It's certainly concerning, and I don't want us to get into a situation where we just focus on the good days and forget about the significant number of bad days that we're having.
Life's about changing, nothing ever stays the same. And she said, how can I help you to say goodbye? It's okay to hurt, and it's okay to cry.
Unfortunately, pets are not going to tell us that, hey, it's time. And so dogs especially, because their whole MO is they want to please you, they want to spend time with you, they just get a kick and a thrill out of being around you and doing the things that you expect them to do. So I've seen dogs who were extremely sick chase a ball and run around or go on a walk or eat their breakfast up until the day that they passed on their own. not eating and not playing are not always good indicators. Certainly if you notice that my pet has refused to eat for 3 days, my dog won't go outside anymore, he won't even go out to go to the bathroom. Obviously the reverse is very significant. However, I don't want us to get trapped into, well, they're not hiding, they're not actively going in the other room, they seem like they want to be around me. And pets are very stoic. They have some of them have a very high threshold for pain and discomfort. Some dogs are so food driven that they will eat and oftentimes are being fed treats and things as they're being administered a euthanasia agent. It's just not the most reliable indicator. And I will say that there is a big difference between active dying and pre-active dying, which means that once your pet develops cancer or liver failure, they may have a decline over several weeks where they lose weight, they don't feel well, they don't want to walk. These things, this is the pre-active stage where it can go on for quite a bit. And then there's the active dying, which I tell owners, this is not the part that we want to see at home. This is the part where your pet is increasingly uncomfortable. They may or may not be painful, but they seem very distressed. There's a lot of abnormal and agonal breathing that goes on. They can't seem to get comfortable. They won't eat. And in general, the process of dying for many pets can take hours to days. And I think that all of us want our pets to just go to sleep and pass peacefully in their sleep. I will say that in my experience, that is rare. Unfortunately, unless there's a cardiac event or they throw a clot, it is something that we just don't see as commonly. And I want to spare my owners the heartache and the agony of watching the process of active dying. In determining when the best timing is, in addition to talking to your provider, obviously, we want to make sure that the family is in unison. And this is a very tricky area. I've had instances where one spouse was very adamant that they could no longer tolerate what discomfort the pet had, or the bills that were piling up, or how the pet was unable to sleep at night and was pacing around. And then the other spouse was firm about wanting to give them another week or two, or they have a child who's in college and they need to wait for Christmas break for that child to come home and be able to say goodbye to the pet. So it's a balancing act. It is really recommended as much as possible that the family is in agreement in some way about the timing of this, because there can be a lot of hurt feelings. It can really exacerbate the grief if certain people in the family did not give permission, were not there to say goodbye. And I certainly understand, if one child is in college, they've gone away, someone's in the military, these types of situations, not all of that can be, preemptively arranged. And certainly we talked about the owners who are faced with the acute decision of hit by car or an overnight emergency. They don't get the luxury of waiting for someone to come home and getting everybody together. But I do recommend, for those who have the ability and the luxury of premeditating all of these decisions and the timing of this, it's so lovely and really just promotes peace and a lot of healing if we can have even an hour where the family is together, whether that's at the time of the euthanasia or a day before, and they lay on the floor and they maybe talk about some good memories that they have. Remember when we first brought him home and he, barked all night long, and all of us said, why did we do this? And then we named him, Trouble. And then, these things happened. That's so good for us. It's so helpful and healing to reflect on those good memories. And your pet can sense all that love and the last, goodbyes that we are having. We're a lot of affection. Some people will feed, favorite meals or something that their pet never got to experience before. I will caution you that doesn't mean that your pet's not going to vomit an hour later. So if you're going to do something like that, maybe right at the time of the euthanasia, not the day before, but allowing the family to have that bonding moment and for the pet to be surrounded by as many caregivers as possible is a beautiful thing. And I do find that it helps promote the path to resolution. So no one ever gets over the loss, but we can come to a term of peace and a place where we say, I wish it hadn't happened, but I know that I made the right decision. What we don't want is for our clients to second guess themselves and say, I don't think it was the right time. I don't know that I did the right thing. My son is upset with us for these things. So as much as possible, open communication and trying to get everybody on board with the decision and the timing is really crucial. It's not always completely possible, but at least, as much conversation and attempts are made to accommodate everyone is really the goal. And then what to do after your pet passes, because I think that in our culture, sometimes we dismiss the profound level of grief that someone can have. And I will say that I feel like in general, grief makes us uncomfortable, especially if it's someone else's grief, because as humans, we are so empathetic that there's just a great tendency to take that grief on. And I would encourage you, don't shy away from that. It's a beautiful part of being a human, a beautiful part of relationships. Be in that grief with someone. It's just such a powerful thing, and you don't even have to know all the magic things to say. You're not going to take the pain away. Sometimes just our presence and not even our words are really what people need, and I think that that's a really great thing. So be comfortable with someone else's grief and don't try to shut it down. I feel like in our culture, there are people who might look down upon someone taking time off from work for bereavement after their pet passes. And I want to encourage you, maybe ask your employer if they offer something like this. And maybe they don't, but they haven't thought about it before, because it is a legitimate grief. There are people who go to bereavement groups or who seek some personal counseling. And I think that all of these are really good ways to handle our grief and our sorrow. I've also had clients who made some donations in honor and memory of their pet to a local shelter or some other organization, which is a beautiful way to memorialize your pet. You can plant a tree or a flower or put their name on a park bench that goes up for the public to see and enjoy. All of these are really wonderful ways to memorialize your pet, but the most important thing is to allow yourself time to grieve. If you need to take some time off from work, surround yourself with people who understand your grief and allow you that time and space. You might never get over the loss of your pet, but you will come to a place where you remember them fondly and with a smile, and it's not all about tears and sadness. Think about the happy times. I hope this information has been helpful to you. I want to affirm you in your decision that whatever you decide, that's what's best for your pet, because you know what's best for your pet. And I want to thank you in advance for making, or at least considering to make, this very difficult but unselfish decision and act for your pet. You are their advocate, and you are the one who has the ability to give them this gift, which is to die with dignity and to end their suffering. Please talk to your professional about any concerns and questions that you have. And at the end of the day, I want to know how I can help you say goodbye to your pet. It is just one of the most important jobs that I have, and I take it very seriously. It's an honor, a privilege, and also it's incredibly sad, but we are here to walk through this with you. Thank you guys, and I will talk to you soon. Blessings.
How can I help